Hey guys, John here, and in this video I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys have left in the comments. This is a Q&A video. Let's go. Let's get rolling with the first question. John, how do you keep your feet warm with the quilt versus a sleeping bag? Well, that's a great question. If you haven't slept in a quilt before, you may be wondering, isn't that like just throwing a blanket over yourself? Well, I use the Enlightened Equipment Enigma quilt, and this particular quilt has a foot box in it. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. The end of the quilt where your feet go is actually a little bit like a sleeping bag, and your feet go in it. The last foot or two is sewed together, and it makes a great spot to keep your feet nice and warm. Now, I'm somebody who's a little bit of a warm sleeper, and I don't have too many problems with cold feet, and it does a great job for me. Now, if the temperature drops below, say, maybe 35 degrees at night, I will throw on a pair of socks, but for the most part, I just sleep in this with bare feet. And what I also can do is take my Sawyer squeeze and put it in a baggie and throw it in the foot box when it gets really cold. But I've found that the foot box does a great job for me in keeping my feet warm. So that's how it works. Let's move on to the next question. Where did you get that little blue coupling for back flushing your Sawyer squeeze? This little guy here is what you're talking about. And this thing goes on your Sawyer squeeze, and you use it in place of the syringe for back flushing. And I got this one on Amazon. If you do a quick search on Sawyer squeeze coupling, it'll be the first thing that shows up in the list. And it is very lightweight, and it comes in at $2.99. So pretty cheap for backpacking gear. Next question. Hopefully me and my 16-year-old daughter will be hiking the PCT this summer. We have most of our gear in order, but since there are two traveling together, I have considered only bringing one cook system. Do you have any thoughts on that? Yes, I do. And so Callan and I used to try to save a little bit of weight for years by carrying only one cook system. And we carried the Hagalite Micro Dualist, which is kind of a bulky thing and a little bit heavy at like 17 ounces. But it's got multiple cups in there, a nice cook pot, and it does a great job for us. The downside that we found is that when you're really hungry and you get to camp, you can only cook one meal at a time. One of the bright sides is if you're not making a mountain house and say you're cooking like a Knorr pasta side or mac and cheese or ramen, you can have the first person cook in the cook pot, and then they dump theirs into a bowl, and then the second person cooks theirs, and you only have to clean one pot because you just dump the food in there and cook in the remnants of what the other person was cooking. So that is one advantage, is there's a little bit less cleanup at the end of the day. For our upcoming through hike of the PCT, we will be taking separate cook pots. And there's a couple reasons for this. The first is I wanted to get a much more lightweight cook pot. So I'll be taking a 650 milliliter titanium pot that's really lightweight, like 4 ounces. The other thing is we don't plan on getting separated, but the thought is if for some reason along this 5+ month journey we end up camping at separate spots on an evening, we won't be stuck and have no way to cook our food. I don't anticipate doing that, and my wife would be really upset with me if I left our 17-year-old at a different spot than myself, but you never know, we just want to be safe, so we'll each be taking our own cook pot on the PCT. Hopefully that answers your question. There are some pros and cons to it, but we took one cook system for years and it worked really well for us, and I think it should work for you also. Okay, on to the next question. Love your use of music and really love your use of map tracing to show viewers what you've done. What do you use for editing, and where do you find your music? For video editing, I use a piece of software called DaVinci Resolve, and it is absolutely amazing. It's free, and for $200 you can upgrade it to like a Premiere version, but I've been using the free version all along, and it can do everything I need it to do. If you can imagine it, you can do it in DaVinci Resolve. It's really quite incredible. So if anybody wants to do any editing, I highly recommend DaVinci Resolve. When I'm out on the PCT, I am going to be using software called LumaFusion on my phone, because obviously I won't have my desktop PC with me. And we'll see how that goes. I have not done much editing on it yet, just a little bit of practicing, but that's what I'll be using out on the trail. As far as the music goes, I just use the free music that comes with the YouTube music library. When you are a content creator and you have a YouTube channel, they give you access to their music library, and there is a ton of stuff on there, all different genres, and it's pretty decent. However, I have looked at things like Artlist, and the music there, in my opinion, is a lot better than music in the YouTube library. As of right now, my channel doesn't make any money, and so I'm using the free service just to keep expenses down. If it ever gets to the point where I do make some sort of a profit, I am going to reinvest that money into the channel, and one of the first things I'd like to do is subscribe to a music service like Artlist so I can have better quality music for you guys to listen to on the videos. All right, time for the next question. How do you take the photos of yourself, especially from a distance? Well, that's a great question, and when I'm out backpacking, I do all the video work on my own. I take a tripod like this along with me, and I put my camera on it, and what I'll do is I'll set it up, I'll get a nice shot lined up, and then we will walk past it or walk toward it, however the shot is that I'm working on, and then I'll go back and pick up the camera. So if you see me doing something like crossing a stream, what that means is I went across, set up the camera, went back, and then walked across again so I could get a good shot of me crossing a stream. Now that sounds like a lot of extra work, but it's really not that bad. Yes, I do sometimes walk, say 50 or 100 yards down the trail so I can get a nice faraway shot, and then I will turn around, walk back, pick up the camera, and then walk that part again. It really doesn't add that much extra work, and I feel that it gives a great view to you guys, the viewers, as to what I'm doing. It shows what we're walking through. It kind of shows the scene, nice steady camera, and I've had a lot of success with that, and I've really liked how those videos have turned out. All right, folks, last question for this Q&A. I like some of your ideas, but have a question about the toilet paper. Isn't toilet paper biodegradable? Why would you pack it out? Also, think of how much more waste you are creating by using so many plastic bags. This is a great question, and what this viewer is referring to is my recent video where I talked about a newer way or a better way I'm going to try for packing out my toilet paper, which is to put it in those little dog poop bags. And I kind of did a little demo of that in the video and showed how that's going to work. And the reason I'm doing it is because on some trails it is required. For example, if you're in the Sierra, you must pack out your toilet paper. In fact, if you're near Mount Whitney, you actually have to pack out the little package as well. They give you a wag bag, and you have to take your poo, put it in the bag, and pack that out as well. I know there's some other trails like the Wonderland Trail where they strongly recommend, or it might even be required, that you pack out your TP there. It's just becoming more and more common on the trail. Another factor is when you're in the higher elevation, like in the Sierra, there's a very short warm season. There's sometimes as little as 4 to 8 weeks where there's no snow on the ground in some of these spots. And there just isn't enough time for that toilet paper to biodegrade in those areas. And that's one of the reasons that they require that you pack it out. Also, let's think about the number of people that are backpacking these days. And they seem to all be camping at the same spots every night, which is going to be around a water source or a shelter. So what you have are hundreds of people that end up camping at these spots over the course of a summer. And a lot of them are taking a number 2 in the morning or in the evening. And so you've got hundreds of cat holes dug around these areas. And the toilet paper ends up getting dug up by animals. I've seen this many times where there's a little dig spot where a squirrel or a raccoon or something dug it up and dragged it out, and then there's gross toilet paper floating all over the place. Also, it is a part of leave no trace principles to not leave the toilet paper out there. So to answer your question, that is part of the why on why people are packing out toilet paper. Also, it's just becoming much more of a common thing these days as we are conscious of the environment. And speaking of the environment, I really like the second part of your question, which asks, hey, is it worse to have all these little plastic bags than to have that toilet paper buried out in the woods? And so what I'm going to do is be using biodegradable dog poo bags, and these are readily available at pet stores or on Amazon. And I think a lot of other backpackers are doing the same thing. There may be other opinions on that, but that's how I see it. I would much rather have that garbage in the landfill, and these bags will biodegrade over time in the landfill versus having all that toilet paper out in the wild. But I'm really glad that people are asking questions and thinking about, hey, how can we best protect the environment? So thank you for sending in that question. So that's it for the Q&A video. Thank you to all the viewers who sent in your questions, and continue to put those in the comments. And if I need to, I can do more Q&A videos as those questions start to pile up. As always, if you found any value in this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks, and we'll see you out on the trail.